Happy heresies and welcome to the desert of the real. I hope you're writing your own gospel and living your own myth, because if not, the demiurge will hire a ghostwriter to do that. And we are sort of in a time warp, as the Rocky Horror Picture Show sings, because the scheduling archons had us adjust us, but we are live and we are there. And most of you will be hearing this, the recorded version. So it matters not, because we are always fighting against Chronos, or at least trying to play his game and be the trickster in this age of Hermes, Philip K. Dick world, and Gnostic times. So very excited today to be joined by Tom Mate. Tom, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Got a lot of stuff to talk about today.
Yes, indeed. Pleasure is all ours, and we will get to it. And if not, we will continue another day as Kronos allows. And with us, always great to have back the Moondog Vance. Vance, how are you doing?
I'm just fine. I'm hoping to convert my uptight vision to upsight vision this morning.
Good.
That's the goal, and it is useful. And Tom's story is certainly, I keep thinking it's useful, it's inspirational, and it's very important today as we in these circles are trying to find different realities, different alternatives, and different answers to know ourselves, to see beyond the veil of reality, and really get into what's important beyond the vagaries of our egos and the programming of society. For those of you, I already see people going into the chat room. Thank you very much for adjusting. And if you have any quick questions, please super chat them, or we will get to them on another time. So Tom, let's hit the ground running. Again, your story is inspirational. Please tell the audience your journey your journey into awakening.
I will. Let me start. I think the reason I'm here, right, is because last year I went to IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and they studied my brain. They hooked my brain up to an EEG machine, and they were trying to they did measure my brain waves while I was doing something that I call upside vision. So upside vision is an ability that I acquired about a dozen years ago. I'll get into how I acquired it, but let me explain what it is so everyone has an understanding of what I'm talking about. My upside vision is the ability to see holographic images that are everywhere around me, and not only to see them, but to interact with them. Okay, so I can shift my attention. We're talking about this. If I wanted to, I won't do it right now. I could shift my attention, and it could be some kid bowling ball. It could be a kid riding a bike. It could be a spaceship going off into space. Now, once I've engaged with it, right, it could be random, or it could be something we're talking about. It could be something like Philip Dick or one of his books or something. Once I've engaged with it, right, so it's out there, but once I've engaged with it, now I'm a part of the process, and I can change these images with a thought. So it's almost like picking up a radio station, right? And then, or maybe CB, those old CBs were in the 70s. And once you're engaged, you can have a conversation. So I went out to IONS last year, and they measured my brain waves. For the EEG, they did two things, right? First, they measured my brain waves, because I want to tell you what it is not. It is not a vivid mind's eye. It is not hyphantasia, right? It is not that. I can tell you, if I'm driving a car and we're remembering like a Star Wars poster, I can drive that car. And if you're a passenger we can talk about it, or I can still drive the car. If I see this Star Wars poster with Upsight vision, it interferes with my motor activity. I have to stop. I could be a passenger in the car, but I couldn't be driving. So I have to pay attention to it. So they measured my brain waves, alpha, theta, all the brain states against a control where they bring up an image. Let's say the Eiffel Tower. I use that all the time. I would think about it in memory recall, and then I would see it with Upsight vision. So they measured all the brain states. The EEG waves measure all the brain states, and there was obvious differences across many of the brain states, actually all the brain states, but it was extremely unambiguous, let's use that word, for the alpha state and the theta state. Now, if you know anything about the alpha state, that's when the brain is calm, right? That is when the brain is typically calm and you're chilling out. So even though I'm calm and I'm just sitting there, my eyes are doing some work. Part of my brain is doing work. Now, the unsurprising thing is the theta state. That's when you're lucid dreaming or mediums, there's activity there. I thought that's where there was going to be the biggest change, but in fact, it was the alpha. So this peer review paper is coming out any day now. It's under peer review, hopefully within the next 30 days, 60 days. And this will be out there. So that's, I want to talk about it because here's the thing. I don't think I'm the only one with this, right? And I say that because I said it in the beginning, but now I know it because every time I do a podcast, somebody sends me an email and somebody says I have some version of this. So talking to people, with some degree of it one way or another. So I'll pause before I tell you what it looks like. So I want people to get an idea of what exactly, when I say holograms, what it looks like. But I'll pause if you guys have a question or anything.
No, it makes sense. And for the audience, this is Ions, which the GOAT himself, Dean Radin, is part of. So this is very scientific, regardless of what the professional skeptics and materialists are trying to do. So again, you're trying to make this something that's valid in the scientific community. And I have my own mysticism, but what you're talking, Tom, is what my wife does. And I've listened to some of your other interviews, been to your blog, because I asked my wife once told me I can astral travel. And she told me, I said, well, how do you do it? And like you, it has to do with trauma. She was a very abused kid. So as a kid, she'd sit in this room and she would sort of close her eyes and things would be blurry. She'd focus on one side and eventually she could leave her body. And one time I asked her, well, what's this travel doing? And like you said, she said, I just go and it's like a radio. I see all the other wavelengths going and I just tap into, like logging on the internet, something like that, right?
Yeah, well, that's how it's a great way to describe it. Everyone knows what that is. So yeah, that's funny. And I'll talk about that in a minute, the trauma. Because everyone that's come to me has had some trauma. They maybe don't have addiction. Like I have a history of addiction. I'm 12 years sober now, but there was addiction.
Congratulations. Same here. I just turned 12 this year.
Thank you. Very good. Very cool. So that's good. So, and by the way, I knew when I had this, I started this I was on coke the first time this ever happened.
Same here.
And I'm like, if anyone's going to take me serious, I cannot be doing drugs because everyone's just going to say it's because of the drugs. Now, maybe the drugs open something, more than likely. You know what I mean? Like, let's not kid ourselves. It may have a place in it, but I don't need to be on drugs. I mean, I'm clean and sober. I do this all the time. Mm-hmm. So let me tell you what this looks like so people can get an idea. I'm going to use two references and somebody's seen hopefully one of them. A few years ago, there was a show called The Queen's Gambit on Netflix. And in that show, the protagonist lays on her bed and she looks at the ceiling at the chess pieces. She's a chess master, right. And she moves them around. And that is a kind of smoky feeling, smoky look. These are typically clear, maybe with a one color tint. And they're, and I can move them, right? Or if you haven't seen that, maybe you've seen the Iron Man movies. When he's in his office, the whole universe is surround him in holographic form. It is literally that detailed. It is that submersive. Now, I can't control it like that. I can't I can't pull up the universe, right? If the universe is there, some things can go back and forth, but it's that detailed. It can be that detailed. So that's what it looks like. And a couple of other things too. This is where I always get kind of skeptics. You talked about the materialists. You're like, oh, it's a product of your imagination. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for a minute. Okay. So I know it's external, A few reasons. Number one, simply my eyes get tired when I look at this, just the same way your eyes get tired looking at a movie or a TV show, or if you're a sports event. Number two, my pupils will dilate when something is arousing or exciting. And you cannot willfully dilate your pupils, right? There has to be an external stimuli. Now, I've said this before, and somebody's come to me and said, yes, you can. Maybe you can, but take all this together, right? I can't. Maybe some people can, I can't. And then the other way is there's something called smooth pursuit eye movements, where you can track this with eye tracking devices. If I watch a jaguar run across the savannah, my eye follows it, and you can't, you literally follow it. It's smooth. So if I'm looking at a blank wall, what looks blank to you if you were sitting next to me, Miguel, but I saw a jaguar running across it with Upsight vision, my eye would follow it smoothly. So I'm following something, even though, quote, it's invisible. So that's why we know it's external, or to start with. But again, once I engage with it, obviously I've become a participant, and I can change it with a thought. It's almost like hearing something, your ears hear it, but I respond with my voice, right? Once you're engaged, I have a part in this exchange of information, knowledge. And listen, if we could figure this out before the end of the podcast, where these waves are coming from, we're going to be billionaires, right? Where are these things coming from? That is the question. That is the question. And why are they? Yeah.
I have a question. Like, if you see something in front of you in this holographic space and you turn your head, does the object move with your head as you turn, or does it stay put and you can see it, through your side vision?
So yeah, both, right? Both. So if I move it sideways, I'll lose it, and you can tell it's kind of moving with me. Okay, so that's that answer. Now, let's say I'm engaged fully with it. I can think let's say it's a car. I can say shift it so it's the bottom of the car, and I'll see it. So yeah, it's just like that. But at the same time, there could be a bird that will fly outside my field of vision, and it will fly around my head, or I think that's what's happening, and it will come in the other side. So you're like, wait a minute, is it leaving my biofield? Again, these are words that we use because we know them, but we really don't know exactly what's happening. Does that answer? Does that help, Vance?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's none of the above. I thought it would be one or the other, but that's a third thing altogether.
Yeah.
But to just to get quickly to the beginning, and I think it's important because all through our lives, again, like you, I got lost in cocaine. I saw things, but again, I was this babbling coke addict. But when did reality start breaking for the audience? Because again, you were a business owner, you had a family, the American life, and then things started changing. What happened?
Okay, so let's go back a dozen years, right? So I'm a recovery drug addict. I got clean and sober in my 40s, but I picked up again. Okay. I had an ad agency, two young boys and a wife. I had an ad agency. This time when I picked up, there was absolute psychosis in my brain. I started believing insane things, like my kids were replaced by alien doppelgangers. I had thoughts that if I had a thought, I would get emotion on it and I would act on it. There was no discernment. I would read something in a fictional book and I think it was true. It got so bad, I literally walked out on my business and family, and I ended up homeless, broke. I spent all my money in downtown LA, and I checked myself into a psychiatric treatment hospital. Now, I wrote a book about this called Jesus Goes to Hollywood, a Memoir of Madness. And it literally covers the 1 year of psychosis. Because believe it or not, it was 1 year to the day and it starts with me trying to burn my house down. No one was home, but I needed to get the attention. Yeah, I wasn't trying to hurt anybody, but I wanted the attention from the authorities. It was psychotic thinking. And it ends, it doesn't end. It ends with me looking for answers. But a year later, it was the first time I had these Upsight visions, right? It was a year later. So this was a dozen years ago. And since then, I started looking for answers. I sent hundreds of emails to different academics, different neuroscientists. I've had 2 MRIs, right? Mm-hmm. There's no brain damage, stroke, lesions or anything else from drug use. My brain is normal, from an MRI perspective. Just something is open. Something has stayed open since then. Again, clinicians, that's the answer I get. It seems to be okay. I can work with that, but that's not really helpful, right? I mean, it's obviously something's different. So I started figuring this out for myself, looking for answers. And let me be honest, there's no historical information about something very specific like this. And I've talked to lots and lots of people about, I went to ufologists about this. I went to academics, historians, and I went to medical, history. There's nothing like this. Now, there may be something, I'll say this, and hopefully somebody sends it to me, because I would love to find some study or something that's been done on this. But we're doing it now. We're literally doing this now. We're figuring it. We're looking for answers now.
But you're saying that it hasn't been done before. You're talking about the study or what you experienced, because the history is full of mystic experiences and
sure.
Valid, and they're true as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, let me be clear on that. That's a very good point. I don't mean the mysticism. Tons of that has been done in different kinds of ways. Specifically saying this statement, this is how I defined it. Dialing in, tuning into a holographic image and changing it and having a conversation with it. I have not found anything like that specifically.
No, that makes sense. So would you say this holographic image is an other form of consciousness, or a little bit of both? Because again, the universe is so interactive. We project, but we receive, and sometimes it's hard to know. Well, you shouldn't even know when reality starts and unreality start, or as you call the organic metaverse. Those are the wrong questions.
Well, fair enough, but so, and I am putting together a PDF called The 8 Stages of Upsight Vision, right? In this PDF, I started, because I always say the organic metaverse / the organic metaverse and this hidden biosphere. Okay, let me take a step back. In my book, when I wrote the book, I called it Schizopedia because it was schizophrenic. There was a break, and it was like Wikipedia because there was some knowledge, but there was a trickster element, right? I couldn't trust this stuff. So I used that word. That was a dozen years ago. I've educated myself and I've learned about it then. So I call it the organic metaverse and the hidden biosphere. And I think they're two separate things. And let me tell you why. The organic metaverse, even though they're related, the organic metaverse is, let's call that the Akashic record. That's where other dimensions are. That's where this knowledge is stored. And this is where I see different shapes, topological spaces, and I can do things from an extra dimension perspective. And by the way, I did get better at math because of this. Let's be clear. I literally got better at math. The hidden biosphere, right? Now they're related, and I don't know where one starts and one begins, but the hidden biosphere is where you see these non-human intelligences, these NHIs that show up in holographic form. This is where you can, I feel like it's part of the Earth's biosphere, some hidden part of invisible. Maybe somebody else can see it. Very few of us can see it, but I think more and more of us are evolving into it because of survival, because of the climate is changing. I don't know. All I know is I can see this. I don't even know it's a part of the electromagnetic spectrum. It might be what they're calling dark matter, because dark matter is not registered on the electromagnetic spectrum. That's why it's called dark, right? And the reason I think it might not be the electromagnetic spectrum is because in my second MRI, right, the MRI is gigantic magnets, right? If what on my little puny brain is using this magnetic field, these magnets are going to rip it apart. Not my brain, but this image, and I wouldn't be able to control it, right? Or it's going to magnify it. I don't know, one of those things. The bottom line, nothing happened. It was business as usual. So it made me think, okay, you know what? I would think the big magnets would do something to it. So maybe it's gravitational or dark matter-ish. Again, more research needs to be done, but it makes you look in those places.
Fascinating. Yeah. And do you think, I guess I'm sort of speculating, is this sort of an X-Men? Like you said, it's an evolutionary change as our environment change and technology, or is perhaps something that we all can do from an evolutionary standpoint, like telepathy? is pretty much, I think, scientific, but things get suppressed and now we're coming back to it. So do we still know? I guess people are probably asking, Tom, well, do I have it? Can I do it? Or do I have to be gifted? Or, yeah, and you don't have to do cocaine or drugs.
No.
Get help. Because
Definitely.
in the Queen's Gambit, Elizabeth is like worried because she thinks it's the drugs that give her that ability to see the chessboard from beginning to end. And she finds at the end that no, I always had this ability. I didn't need the drugs.
Listen, Mikhail, when I saw that, when that plot point turned on that, when she put it down and did it, I was like so happy. I'm like, oh, you felt this kindred spirit with this 1950s character, whatever. It was so good. I mean,
I love that show.
But back to your question about the X-Men, my wife will rib me mercilessly. She goes, Tom, you're not an accidental X-Men. I'm like, oh, fine. I put that in the book. We had this conversation. She just will not let that go. But I do think something happened. I mean, obviously something happened. And again, everyone that's come forward has had some kind of trauma. Trauma opens this up. Now, I think you can access this through meditation and breath work if you do it, religiously, whatever, industriously, if you do the discipline. Because I've read stories about meditators who've literally been in meditation mode and this alien gray will show up and they'll go to their teacher and they're like, listen, the teacher will say something like, ignore it. You need to meditate. I'm like, oh, time out. There was an opportunity there. So I don't know. Things are happening over there. I can't speak to that. I just read that story. So I don't know if so the NHI that show up, right? I'm not a starseed. Are you familiar with that term?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So people that are starseeds, and I have no reason to believe they're not, they download stuff and they talk to them and they tell them what's going to happen with the Earth. That doesn't happen to me. These beings show up and they're like, okay, they kind of point me in the right direction. They're like, build a team, talk about this. They're not as helpful. They're not as helpful to me as they are to some other people. In fact, the Greys, when they showed up at the beginning, they were kind of like a nuisance. They were literally a nuisance while I was working on math, and I didn't understand why they were doing it. I still don't. But there's other kinds of beings that I see, again, in holographic form. I want to be clear about this. I'm not in the room with them. So, this holograph could be created in a submarine off of the coast of California. Right? It could be a satellite. Right. The government could be punking me. They're taking a lot of time and a lot of effort, and a lot of energy, and I don't know what the payoff is, but there could be some kind of element that it's certainly a possibility. I have to think that.
Yeah, as you say, these non-human intelligence aren't necessarily good, because we get right into the story of the Archons or the Nordics or some of the more negative entities out there that human history has experienced since time immemorial.
All right, so you want to talk about those? Because I'll talk about what I've seen. Yeah, let me say the funniest thing I think is I've seen pretty much every traditional non-human intelligence and a bunch of the other ones that I've never heard of, but I've never seen a Nordic. A tall white, the same thing, right?
Right, exactly.
Never, ever. So part of me is like, are these things pretend? Have people talked about them and they're not really, or are they just are interested in showing themselves to me? I find that really interesting, and I've done this 12 years, so they've never shown up in anything in my view. And I've seen a lot of different kinds. And here's what's interesting about this place that I visit or that I see: it is not heaven and hell. Right? There's not demons and angels. It is things pretending to scare, not pretending, they do scare you, right? They can definitely scare you if you're not prepared. If you show up and you see this freaking horned demon, you're going to be terrified, right? Especially if you're on drugs. You know what I mean? That's not helpful.
No.
But I have learned if you just sit there with this and just, almost have a staring contest, for lack of another description. Just sit there with it. It will change. It will go away. It's an illusion. Is my point. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of horrible, disgusting things that you can see in this place. Anything you could think about on the dark web or anything two people can do to each other. I have stumbled upon that, and I just don't look. Because it's uncomfortable, and I don't need to see that. So that makes me wonder where those things are coming from, right? Where is that signal coming from? Is it a reflection of our real world? Don't know.
Is there sound? Can you hear things as well associated with what you see?
Typically, no. Sometimes if I hear something, and again, when you say hear, it's like hearing your mother's voice. You know what it sounds like? I never hear it. I just have the thought of that. Sometimes it does happen, but it is not the norm. That's my answer to that. And sometimes I'll hear things while I'm not doing Upsight, right? And I do think that's related, like a download. Sometimes I'll get a download of some kind of information. But again, I've learned that you need to discern this. Everything, it shows lies. It will show me a Kentucky Derby race with the different results. It does not want me to bet on races. It does not. It wants to, whatever this intelligence is keeping me away from trying to have make money in an easy way. And I've heard since I've talked about that, people say, "Oh, that's normal. This is not that. Does not care about that. This is bigger, more important, more connected. And it doesn't want that to happen. Whatever this is."
Yeah, it's not synced to this timeline. In other words, it's not tied to our linear time scale.
Well, if it is, some of this isn't, and if it is, it doesn't want me to do that. But let's talk about that for a minute. This is what's totally fascinating. And I have an Upsight Vision Tom Matt YouTube channel. She's got these images on it. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting. I can see this invisible biosphere interacting with our genetic DNA, right? There's a picture I have of a DNA strand with a ring around the strand and these candy cane hooks in place, right? And I see a before, and that's a snapshot of it. It does something before that image, and it does something after that image. Now, if you're a geneticist, you're going to say, that's absurd. This is not what we see when we look underneath an electron microscope. You're seeing something else, or you're making it up, or whatever. I don't know. But there's a process the same way we see a cell split from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, 32, 64, then it turns into a frog or a human. This what I'm seeing interacting with our real 3D world has a process, and it's repeatable. And that's what I've learned. The things that are true, I can see the same thing again and again. I'll see lies a lot, but the stuff that's repeatable, I see. The stuff that's true tends to see again and again. It can't hide itself from what's going on. In other words, does that make sense? Can't hide itself from our vision.
Yeah, I'm getting the picture.
Okay, and also how it interacts with a double rainbow. A double rainbow is typically two flat circles, right? The small darker one and the more diffuse one outer. With Upsight Vision, the small darker one is a funnel coming towards us. And then it unravels in the other direction, and the other one goes away from us. The other one is diffused going away from us. So even though, again, this is an illusion of perspective. So this can't even be a real thing. But from the side view of this illusion of perspective, it's two funnels as opposed to two circles on top of each other, or two arcs, if that makes sense. Again, I've got pictures of this on my YouTube site.
I know in the comments, Vance, you were mentioning Tesla, a parallel with Tesla.
Yes. Do you know about that, Tom?
Yeah, I do. And so here's what I say. First of all, definitely not Tesla. Guy was a genius, unbelievable. And I've studied him, obviously, because once I heard that he saw these things he saw these, not his mind's eye, but he saw it. And he knew that alternating current generator was going to work before he built it, right? He's like, I know it's going to work. Right. He's like, so yeah, I got this, right? So he saw it, he fixed it, and he built it. I have this coordinate system that has been shown to me over the years. Call it the Cartesian coordinate system on steroids, that when I'm ready to, and I'm getting ready now, I will build it with software, right? It is so much different than our coordinate system, but that's the best analog I have to describe it, right? It's got a whole bunch of different kinds of numbers, new numbers, more dimensions. It's fluid. There's no first number. There's a lot of pieces to it. It's complex. The math to navigate it is undergraduate math, but the system itself is extraordinarily complex, and it's going to take some mechanical engineers and some coders to build it. And, I just need to put the effort in to do it.
So are you saying that Tesla did or did not have this type of, your type of Upsight vision?
I think he definitely had this. So there you go. That's one person that probably had it just like this. I mean, I think he thought he was communicating with things too. So yeah, he is actually, that's a good point. He's one person that the most well-known person that I've ever heard about that I would say had Upsight vision.
Interesting. Yeah, I think Graham is saying parallels Castaneda seeing. Again, we're sort of trying to find a sense of perspective. Like the one that jumped out to me, Tom, is Goethe. He was one day walking by and he sees a burned church. And he sits there and he sketches how this church looked that had been burned for decades. And then later went and saw the plans and it was the exact church. And he said it was kind of the same. He sort of sat there and he visualized and sort of the real church, the old church came around like in a vision. He didn't call it the world of ideas. He called it something else. But could that be something that Goethe was seeing, how things were answering, or what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely think that sounds exactly kind of like this. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, without a doubt, but I don't know, but sure.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And yeah, again, people are trying to get a sense of perspective because what you're doing, which I love, is I always say the great ones in history, and whether it's Carl Jung or Tolkien, the real they don't just bring new ideas, they bring a new language, because a language changes our way of you were in advertising, right? Making up language is how you control people's minds.
Well, you know, when we were talking at Ions, they're like, Tom, nobody knows what Upsight vision is. So we don't know if that's probably what we should call it. And I said, listen, that's a fair comment, but how would you describe it? They're like, well, describe it as a holographic image that you can interact. I'm like, okay, so Upsight vision is this description. We all settled on. I mean, it makes it easy. It's smart too. It's a new word. It's a new description. It is different. And this is important too. So I wrote a blog on the Ions website called Is Upsight Vision a Psychic Ability? Okay. It is different than telepathy. It is different than remote viewing, lucid dreaming, and precog. And I compare it to those three because those things happen while I'm using Upsight, right? I will be doing Upsight. I'll see a bridge collapse. 2 hours later, I'll look online and a bridge collapsed. Okay. Something as mundane as I see a shopping cart hit somebody in the leg, right? The next day I walk into the grocery store, I get hit in the leg with a shopping cart. I'm like, well, that's the stuckiest precog, least helpful thing you could show me, right? And the first one, so my point is those two things happen, but I'll see 10 other things that never happen, or I don't know how to find out if they happen. So there you go. Telepathy, sometimes, I'll get thoughts. Those I can't prove. That's the key. The reason I went to Ions, the reason this is so important and this peer review paper is coming out is I can get in a lab and do this all day long, right? I can do this. Right. I don't have to wait. And they can measure with the technology we have. They can measure what's going on in my brain. If I was in an fMRI, they could see what parts of my brain are lighting up while I'm using Upsight, as opposed to just sitting there not seeing anything. So there's a lot, there's some technology, not as much as I would like to have. Maybe the next step is maybe a plasma field. Maybe these things are plasma, right? Next time I'm doing it, what if there's a plasma element to it? That would be fascinating. And that's definitely something that we've discussed. I don't know if that's what it is, but again, until we test it, we'll find out.
Fascinating. Yeah. And like I keep going back to the idea you got something happen with the trauma broken, and now you can again log on to the internet, because as a friend Gordon White said, the universe is a jungle. It's not one monolithic thing. It's overlapping, and there's so many things, universes and dimensions coming through. So you're just tapping into it. And of course it takes I'm sure it takes it's an exercise, a skill, right, Tom? You're probably much better now than you were 12 years ago.
Yeah, but it's funny. In the PDF I'm writing, I use the Amazon jungle as a reference. I say I really do. It's like an expedition, and you never know what's going to show up. Some of them are malevolent, some of them are not, and some of them are indifferent. So let's talk about the tuning in part, right?
Yeah.
If anyone has a history of DMT or drug use and everything like that, or I'll share this. There are anecdotes, testimonials of guys tripping and all seeing the same thing. A group of guys are all like, wow, we all saw the same machine elves, or they saw the same thing. All 6 guys saw the exact same thing. They come down from it and they tell the story. They're like, did that happen? No, it didn't happen. You can't reproduce that in a lab. You know what I mean? You can't reproduce that. Plus everyone's high. So it's an anecdote, but it's dismissed. Now, same condition. Let's put me in there as the control, right? Let's say I tune into what they're looking at. Let's say I can use my brain, like I'm using my voice to project something. Somehow this is up there. If they all see this, whatever I'm projecting, or if something else is projecting at one of them and we all say it, now we've all tuned into the same frequency. Now we found a new form of communication. The question is, how do we get there without the drugs? Because people can't be just tripping balls, communicate. Well, they can, but it's probably not, it's not what we want. No. And I think, by the way, that will happen. There's so much research in DMT now, and all kinds of psilocybin and everything like that. And I also think, by the way, that if somebody else here had it, and this is very easy to test too, to the degree I do, we could be in the same room and I think we could probably communicate holographically. Again, very simple to prove. I just need to find somebody that has it like I do. And even if it didn't work the first time, maybe we need to get our brains into some kind of entrainment. Maybe we need to sing the same song. Maybe we need to go work out. Maybe we need to meditate. But it's worth trying when somebody has it, like I said, like I do. And then if that happens again, it's a whole new communication realm, whole new communication element with these waves.
For sure. And how do you get yourself in that state to see the hologram? I mean, it's like you said, these days it's voluntary, right?
Yeah, right. So there's no, it's the shift of attention, right? So right now they're floating by or whatever, right? You want me to do it? Let me do it right now. Let me just do it because whenever I do this, somebody has something. It's like I've done it where people pick up an item they had on their desk. The last 2 times I've done it like that. What I'm seeing or something. Hold on. I know this is weird. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, that's okay. There is no such thing as weird in this show.
All right, fine. It takes a second.
If we talked about the stock market, that would be weird on this show.
All right, it's a bicycle. It's just some guy on a bike. Actually, it's a 3-wheel old-timey bicycle. Or maybe it's not old-timey, it's a 3-wheel bicycle. It's somebody driving a three-wheel bicycle. Maybe it's a motorcycle. Anyway, so that has nothing to do with this conversation, right? Somebody could make the case, well, you're projecting that from one part of your brain. Maybe, right? Maybe, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's not, well, it does matter. Sometimes I'm projecting it, sometimes I'm not. But I did this the other day on a show, right? And I saw a baby. They have those things that kids play with, the cones with the colored donuts that go around it. I'm seeing that. I said, it doesn't make any sense. And one of the hosts or the producer literally held it up and said it was right sitting next to her. Yeah, so this thing still freaks me out too, right? I didn't know that's what I was seeing, but that's what happens.
Yeah, almost. You were almost getting into Jung and Wolfgang Pauli idea of synchronicity, where the a casual connection of the universe. That's how the other way we connect things is through synchronicities. And again, Jung left it very open for people to sort of evolve the concept and test it out.
In my book, I had so many. One of the themes, for lack of another word, in my book was the instances of synchronicity. There's a movie. Let's talk about another movie. There's a movie called Baby Driver. It came out maybe 6-7 years ago now. In the opening scene, the protagonist, with the credits rolling, he was kind of listening to his song, and he was standing in front of billboards, and the billboard would have like trumpets when the trumpet was saying, and he would do this, and the trumpet was there. And when I saw that movie, I got chill bumps, because the same thing happened to me when I was leaving the Beverly Hills Hotel in California in 2012. Every car that rolled up I had a song in my head. It was Springsteen, Blinded by the Light, his version of it, not Manfred Mann. And for like 40 seconds, I can't remember now, but every literal thing that was happening in my real world related to this song, as if a director had blocked it. And I fell down almost in tears. I was like, why? I thought somebody was mocking me. This is when I was psychotic. I was like, why are you doing this to me? Since then I've reflected on it, and it's more of a spiritual opening moment. And I've looked at it in a new lens, like, okay, this is just the world saying, listen, there's so much more here than we know of. Pay attention.
For sure, yeah. I like Manfred Mann's version. All my life, I always thought is blinded by the light, wrapped up like a douchebag, another runner.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I
yeah.
still don't know the lyrics, but that's
Deuce, it's a
fine.
deuce, it's a car.
Oh, a deuce. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do that. We listen to a song when we're young, we get the lyrics wrong, and then we just,
Yeah.
circle our wagons to whatever our version of the song
So
is.
what do you guys think? Let me ask you, what do you think about the Gnostics is hacking the matrix or seeing behind the veil? What are your thoughts? I'm very curious to know what you think about this too.
I'll let Vance go.
World of archetypes. That's what I think of, because, if all these different things, are present somewhere, sometime in the universe, and, our lives as we live them in our linear timeline, all the things that we see are probably drawn from this pool of archetypes. So if you've developed the ability to see into that archetypical world, all the different things, objects, relationships, what they could be doing, that's all there. So if you can tune into it, that what you're saying is reminding me of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, I mean, there's so many instances, and certainly the Gnostics were always playing with visionary experiences and astral travel, even though they did their Baroque ceremonies where entheogens were probably present and so forth. I see it even going a step farther. I don't know if anybody's familiar with this author, although this author is hugely influential to George R. Martin and Neil Gaiman, and it's Roger Zelazny, and he wrote a series called Nine Princes in Amber, where they would just visualize something, and they would travel, the very universe would change. They would imagine, and so they could travel these dimensions where in this dimension the sky's yellow and pink, and then in this dimension there's a guy riding the bike and suddenly he's in the other dimension. So you think, I mean, we could take it further, Tom. You might be able to cross over yourself, because that's what these ancient Gnostics and Neoplatonists wanted to do. They didn't want to just break open the fabric of reality. They wanted to go where no man has gone before, the farthest frontier.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That's a lot, right? I don't need
Yeah,
that.
sorry.
That's way too much, man. I
Well,
didn't sign up
your
for
ideas are so stimulating. I'm like,
yeah,
all
no,
over
no,
the
I
place.
like it. I like it. I just didn't sign up for it, right? It's like, hold on a minute, hold on. Trying to get
Like,
through.
dude, get this, dude. Every planet's an atom, man, and we're all atoms.
But I do feel like there's an evolutionary element to it. And I wrote a blog about this a while back called Maybe It's an Upregulation of My Gene. There's a mutation going on. So why do you have a mutation, right? Something happened. Is it for survival? Is it going to be over time evolutionary survival? Because maybe we're doing something with climate change. Maybe something is coming and we have to be prepared for it. Maybe there's a non-human intelligence on this earth that are directing us and kind of pointing us in certain directions. I am totally open, because I'm credulous. You tell me something, right? I will believe you, because, if you're lying, that's on you, right? I'll figure that out after a while, right? But if these things are happening to me, they must be happening to other people. Right. And again, I know some of them reach out to me, and there's a couple of people that can almost do it to the degree I can, or they can do it to the degree I can, but in a different, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's also reminding me too. I'm doing research on this David Bowie book, and when he would get cocaine, he would see things that were, and his wife would be like, "What are you seeing, David? This house is possessed. The universe is breaking apart." And I think what he was seeing was real. I think he was just the pressure and the cocaine, and just started breaking him.
Let's talk about that, right? So I do too. I think David Bowie. So there's certain artists that this is going to get into. If we haven't considered woo now, this is going to get into the woo. There are certain artists that I feel have this ability, right? And David Bowie is without a doubt one of them. Now, people have also come forward and said to me, without any, like I said, addiction issues, saying that they have this ability. They had it growing up even, but they didn't tell anyone because they told their mom, and their mom said, "Shut up, don't tell anyone. They're going to think you're crazy." I hear that more often than you know. And people are like, wow, I'm so thankful I can talk about this. And there's a name for it, right? Now people are saying, oh, that's what I'm doing. There's a name for this. So I'm really kind of happy that we decided to go forward with this name, because other people there's kind of a North Star, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I call the PDF coming out 8 stages of Upsight Vision is because there are different stages, right? There's some more advanced, and even there's something past Upsight Vision. There's like this enlightenment. And this is not enlightenment. Let me say that clearly. I am not in any way enlightened at all. This is a physiological thing, right? I have not earned that title at all, right? I do not claim it or anything.
You're not going to start your own cult? Come on, you'll make so much money.
No, I don't know. I'm not at all interested. So this is a physiological thing that's opening my mind to see more things than other people are. Now, I think to the next stage might be, there's a spiritual element. Don't get me wrong. There's a spiritual element to it, but it's more physiological. Like you can see more. So you're like, just by that very nature, the awness, I am in awe of this. So you're connected to something. And again, that's a lot, being connected, I did, by the way, this also didn't have an answer. Somebody's like, well, don't you feel cool? Like you got this is not answer. It's like 1,000 more questions. This is 1,000 more questions.
I've got one.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Can you, I know that once something appears in your Upsight, you can manipulate it, right? You've said that. Can you initiate an object? Like if you wanted to see an apple in your Upsight, could you right now say, there's an apple?
100%. Yeah, for sure. I could do whatever. I could turn the apple. Yes, without a doubt. Yeah.
Okay. So have you tried saying, all right, I want to see God in Upsight?
Yeah. So and typically it's the sun. When I say that, it's the sun, right? So I mean, that's kind of I've seen it. I've asked that a lot. I've tried to remote view Area 51. Do you guys want to hear that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I can't. So no, this is why I think it's evolutionary. Let me tell you, you guys are going to like this. So I've tried to remote view Area 51, and it always shows like, I don't call it a metaphor or idiom. It's like the Germans with their Doberman guard dogs. And I can't get past that, right? Can't get past it. So, and then I've tried to remote view, what's that guy's name? The guy that killed himself in jail.
Epstein.
Oh, Jeffrey. Yeah, that's a natural one.
I can't see that either, right? I can't see that. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is not going to let me see something that's dangerous to me. Right? This thing, if it is survival, it's not going to let me have any information that could put my human life in jeopardy. That's what I've resolved too, right? It's like putting your hand closer to a stove. My brain is smart enough to pull back, right? It's like, so I'm like, I'm not supposed to see those things. Again, it's like winning the lottery. If I could win a horse race, people would find that really interesting. This is interesting now anyway, but if you could do something that spectacular, it would be dangerous. So I will not let me see certain things. There's no doubt there's a blocking, a stopping of that happening. That said, I have seen the Kennedy assassination, and I have actually, I've got an illustration of it. And this is
grassy knoll.
No, inside the car. It's a can't miss shot. The guy is underneath, in between Connolly, lying on his back like this. So, and Connolly, when he jumps back, and you can see this, it's like comes out of a vent. And the first shot is right here. And the second shot is actually the driver turning around, shooting him in the head. But it's like a can't miss shot. Now, again, I don't know if that's accurate. All I know is that's what it keeps showing me. And it is what I've said earlier. The things it shows again and again tend to be true. Who knows?
Does it match the films of the assassination?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, no. So when I first did it, it started showing me the car. So I would watch it, and it would show the car was lower to the ground. And I'm like, why is it showing me that? I'm like, oh, because there's more weight in it than it should be. Then it would take another view inside, and then it did a cutaway, for lack of another word, of this sniper, not a sniper, a rifleman, because again, it was 2 feet away. And if you think about it logically, you're like, well, yeah, if they were setting this up, you can't miss, if you're going to kill the president, you can't miss. And that is the can't miss shot of the universe. Right. So I don't know.
So he's in the car, right?
He's in the car. He's in the car. Lying on his back. Yeah, he's harnessed.
How come nobody saw him? I mean,
because I don't know if the car was retrofitted. I don't know. Again, and that means FBI, CIA is involved, but whatever. You know, who thinks that happens?
The
Yeah.
secret
obviously.
compartment.
Yeah, exactly. Like a sliding drawer in an oven. That's how it was.
Yeah.
In between the guys. In between, that's what it shows me. And it makes sense. So if you look at it, you're like, well, that could easily happen. You just need to, fix it. You just need to retrofit the car, however they do that. So.
Well, there is the theory that Jackie did it. She was the one that.
I don't know that.
Well, again, these are all fun. Again.
Wait, hold on. Wait.
Yes. There is a theory out there.
She was mad about Maryland or something. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she had a reason.
Yeah, for sure.
Hell hath no. Yeah. The scorn
gun
of a
hidden
woman.
in her pillbox hat, right?
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Like open up.
And that's the thing. I keep hearing you saying it won't let me. And that's interesting because obviously I'm moved by certain forces that have caused me to do things in life. And I just have to trust this thing doesn't work in time and space. It has a different morality. Call it the gods, call it the universe purpose. Is this to say but it is moving me somewhere, like you, right, Tom?
This is what I call it. And I'll stick with this even on this conversation. It's a non-human intelligent guide. Mm-hmm. Right? It's an NHI guide. Now, you could call that God. You could call that my higher power. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Whatever it
your
is.
Animal guide, your
day. Yeah. Really. And it's helpful. It is not, again, it's got my best interest, even though it shows me lies and like stuff that's not there. Maybe it's showing me that so I can learn discernment. Just like when you're raising a kid, like, okay, this, you know what being teased is, so it's kind of a teaching mechanism. It's like I'm learning along the way, but ultimately it seems to have my best interest, in mind. It absolutely, again, I don't know what it is. I know this, I get frustrated because I want answers and I won't get them. Right.
You're only human right now.
right. No, that's it, man.
Because Bowie, the thing about Bowie, I'm researching, he had this obsession with this evolutionary being, whether it's aliens, the Vril, the Homo superior. It's like he was like singing that we need to evolve to these super powerful Nietzschean William Burroughs kind of beings, and you see it all the time in his music. And again, it struck a chord. That's why he was so worshipped in the 70s.
I think he had so many more skills that maybe he knew about it, but he was ahead of the curve. Let's say from an evolutionary, certainly from an intellectual. I mean, he knew the internet. This is funny. I don't know if you've seen the interview where he's talking about, he knew like day one what the internet was going to be. He just said it as a matter of fact. I'm like, this guy, he was plugged into something, and this is interesting. Many musicians and artists, especially, actually no, both, but more recently, the people that are in music have come to me. I've become friends with, actually the bass player for Quiet Riot, Rudy Sarzo. He's a bass player.
Yeah, of course. And he was in Whitesnake too.
Yeah, exactly. So we're become buds now. He's coming to Georgia next month, and we're going to hang out because of this. He reached out to me, and he's got it too. He's got it to a certain degree. And there's other musicians that have come forward as well. So yeah. It's
Come
really
on, feel the noise.
Yeah.
Which of course written by Slade, which was part of the glam rock of David Bowie.
That's good.
And for the audience, David Bowie was this normal bloke. He had trauma when he was a kid, which I'm going to show. And he was broken before he even wanted to be a rock star.
That's one person, you sit there and talk about Prince, Michael Jackson, David Bowie. I would have loved to hang out with David Bowie, man.
Yeah. Well, he was very good at stealing ideas. That was his gift. They used to say, don't tell Bowie you have a new pair of shoes because he will steal it. Good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Yeah,
Same with mystics. Great mystics will rip you off, and that's just the way it is. So it's a trickster thing. Well, awesome. Well, we're getting towards the end. What else do you want to tell the audience before you go about your process and more to find out more about you?
Well, just if you do want to know my backstory, Jesus Goes to Hollywood: A Memoir of Madness is on Amazon. If you want to find that out, again, it's 1 year, first 2/3. It's kind of what I went through. The last third is looking for answers. But if you want to look at my YouTube videos, and I don't have a lot, you Upsight Vision on YouTube. And if you think you have it, go to Upsight Vision on Facebook. It's kind of a support group with people that have it and want to talk to other people. It's not like you need support, just kind of more. We're collecting knowledge in this space. Or you can go to my website and you can sign up for the PDF I am going to be sending out this month the 8 stages of Upsight. So yeah, this is a pleasure, guys. Very much so. I hope you guys got something out of it as much as I did. You guys brought some really good ideas to me, and I like when hosts make me think about something I haven't thought about. That's the best.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. For the audience, it's in the show notes right now, whether you're audio, watching on a video channel, we've got the show notes. So please check out Tom's work. I think it's important, and it's another great avenue for the expansion of consciousness of humanity. Any last words, Vance, on your end?
No, it's been fascinating. I'm jealous. I often wish that I could see into other dimensions and so forth. So good luck with it. And when your bass player friend comes over, you ought to try that communication experiment.
Yeah, we are absolutely gonna.
Great.
Good, very good, Vance.
Very cool. Very cool. For the audience, great comments. There was a couple, I think a super chat. Thank you. Do we thank that person, Vance?
Yeah, Mindhack gave us a couple, and he didn't have any questions. He just liked the show.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there were some good questions. Well, awesome. Well, at the end, we got some great shows next week, including Occult Germany on sigils and amazing shows. So what we're going to do, I'm going to end with a little bit of a surprise, Tom. I think you'll like it. It might get taken down by YouTube later on, but it won't be in the audio. But it will be, if you're on Rockfin or Rumble, you'll hear it. If you're live, hear it. And this is a scene from the Queen's Gambit, which I think will summarize Tom's work. It's at the end. She's sober. She's going against the greatest chess player in the world, a stoic Russian. Looks like she's defeated. She's sober. And suddenly the upside kicks in. So we will end with that. And again, yeah, Vance and Tom, thank you. And here it is.